You haven't experienced volatility until you've owned Bloom Energy stock. Bloom Energy is one of my favorite stock picks going into the next 5 years. Last year, we saw an incredible run up from $30 all the way to $150, which granted was a little fast, but regardless of that, the company itself is something that I'm personally excited for. Now, don't get it mixed up with the Girly Pop energy drinks, which is also called Bloom Energy. It's not that, okay? We're not drinking energy drinks here. It's Bloom Energy is a fuel cell technology company focused on the AI data center energy play, which is kind of trending, or not trending, but which is really blown up in terms of investments over the last few years. And today I want to talk about Bloom Energy and what it actually is. I made a video about Bloom Energy a few months ago, before the holidays. I didn't really talk about what Bloom Energy does. I talked about why I'm bullish on Bloom Energy. I kind of want to talk about the company itself and the technology itself. Before I start talking about it, I'm not an expert. I'm not a scientist, okay? I'm doing the research that I feel like I can, but people might understand this a lot better than I do. So please do your own research. And if I mess up on the information, comment below and I'll try to respond to it. But just take everything I say with a grain of salt, because I'm an investor. I'm not a technology expert, but I hope to kind of learn more as I research companies like this. Don't mind my ghetto mic stand. My mic stand broke, so we're using my Yeti cup, and it works great, so don't judge. Again, this is not financial advice. This is just me sharing my opinion and what I've learned. Please do your own research when it comes to these companies, because this one, especially Bloom Energy, is very volatile. And if the market takes a correction, this thing will take a major correction. Hyperscalers have been investing big in AI for the past few months and years even, and they continue to do so because they believe it's real, and I do too. I've been using LLMs for the past few months pretty religiously, and I think there's a lot more, obviously, than LLMs that AI has to do with, such as military technology, robotics, self-driving cars. You know, there's going to be a lot of use cases for AI technology. The bottleneck in AI, in the AI investment, in my opinion, is energy. Is there enough compute, and is there enough energy to support that compute? And that's where Bloom Energy comes in. It's not a utility play. It's kind of like a technology energy play. You can go to their website and check it out, but here I'm going to kind of explain how it works. So Bloom Energy, they basically have these modular fuel cells. These fuel cells take in natural gas, hydrogen, and biogas, which can be like methane, and it converts it to electricity. They have a nice video here. It's a little boring, but if you want to learn more, this kind of explains it a little bit more. But they also have this diagram here that's kind of nice. And so let's just look at it. Step 1, fuel cells. Fuel cells convert fuel into high efficiency electricity without combustion. Next, creates a stack. The solid oxide fuel cells are then combined to form a fuel stack. The fuel stacks are combined to form a module. A lot of these modules form a server, basically. These Bloom modules, they take the natural gas or the biogas or the hydrogen mixed with oxygen, and they're able to output these ions, basically electricity. So with Bloom Energy, what they do is they deploy these fuel cells and energy servers at data centers or factories or buildings, and they can either be used as the primary source of electricity, or they can be used to offset the utility electricity, basically coming from the utility company. And this is good for a few different reasons. One, if they have both the Bloom energy servers and the utility electricity, they're able to have a more predictable energy cost each month. They're also able to hedge against if there's power outages or power constraints. And so those two reasons are really important. For data centers, we've seen this shift. I think over the past year, even, the market was trying to figure out, like, where are we going to get this energy from? There is a huge shift towards nuclear. Companies like Oklo and Constellation Energy and Cameco and like all of these like energy fields, like uranium miners. A lot of investors were kind of shifting towards the uranium and nuclear plays, which still have faith that in the future we might need those. And so those might take a little bit to kind of get online. These hyperscalers are moving at speeds so rapidly that a company like Oracle even needs to deploy these fuel cells within 90 days. And that's the deal that we saw with Oracle and Bloom, and that's kind of what got me interested as an Oracle investor back in the a few months ago, was Oracle requesting that Bloom Energy deploy their fuel cells within 90 days, and they got it done even quicker. Now, we don't know how big that deal was with Oracle, but I imagine, Bloom is powering some of their data centers, which is exciting. And that was kind of the first legit headline that we saw last year. And since then, they've gotten more deals. But back to the energy thing, the market was trying to decide if it was nuclear, if it was LNG, if it was utility companies to invest in. And Bloom Energy caught a huge bid because there's kind of the shift towards on-site power for these data centers that are being built. The data center play, the data center investment thesis was definitely real last year. We saw a lot of companies gain a huge valuation, even if they weren't profitable. Bloom Energy is a really cool company because they can actually scale, whether the client needs, little power because they're getting more from the utility company, or they need more, and they can even add on after the project's done. They can add on more energy servers to power the data centers or the factories based on the client's needs, which is really exciting. I came across this guy's YouTube channel, Data Center Richness. I've only really listened to this video and I want to listen to more, but he had a podcast interview with Jeff Barber, who is the vice president of data center sales for Bloom Energy. And Jeff Barber goes into a little bit more detail about what Bloom is, like where do they fit into the market? And so let's just watch it real quick.
No, I love that question, Rich. Yeah, so Bloom solid oxide fuel cells are intended to be primary baseload power. I'm not a backup gen, and I'm certainly not a battery. Something I hear quite often. They kind of look like mini batteries, I guess, but I'm not a battery. So primary baseload power with or without the utility. That's a critical point. To your earlier statement, yes, there's a very real ROI for both the developer and the tenant in coming to market years ahead of what they're going to see from the utility. Or if utility is there, how about densifying the data halls, rack densification, right? NVIDIA is talking 150, 200, 1 megawatt racks. Don't ask me how we're going to cool that, but the industry is creative. But basically what that's saying is, okay, if I have a 50 megawatt connection from the utility, but I need 300, okay, deploy 250 of Bloom, deploy 50 of the utility. We're simply supplementing those electrons.
But he basically says that Bloom wants to be the primary energy provider. Even if it isn't, it can supplement pretty hard on those utility companies. And so that way, you're getting even more power for, these racks that require so much. Bloom, to me, is an exciting opportunity. Granted, it's at a rich valuation of $30 billion or $32 billion, but I think there's a lot more upside to have even from here if you're looking at it from a long-term investment. If you believe AI is real and you believe that the data center play is real, then over the next 5 to 10 years, Bloom Energy should be deployed their fuel cells, in my opinion, will be deployed to way more data centers and factories and companies that rely heavily on generating their own power and bringing power to their own data centers, on-site power, rather than taking it from the grid or the utility companies. And another bullish headline was even like recently. I'm just going to read the headline real quick, but basically, Trump wants tech companies to foot the bill for new power plants because of AI. Now, these could be, massive power plants, but regardless, Trump is saying, okay, let's have the hyperscalers pay for the power bill rather than why should all of us pay for the data center power bills, right? And that's kind of where Bloom comes in, is because they're able to supplement that extra power and bring the power on site. Okay, so it's just a really exciting opportunity in terms of technology. I think it's an innovative and also sustainable and efficient way to provide energy. It's clean, which is, I'm not trying to be green or anything. I'm not huge on the green climate change thing, but having clean energy is also not a bad look. On that note, we've kind of talked about their technology, and let's talk about their numbers a little bit. Their numbers look pretty decent. The last earnings that they had, and we should be getting earnings pretty soon here, but their last earnings, they had a revenue of 519, which is a 57% increase from last year, third quarter, right? 2024, which is a huge growth increase. I like to look at companies as a growth investor. I look at companies that are growing more than 30% year over year in terms of revenue, and so that's really exciting to me. They also announced some new deals, but let's look at this here at Fiscal AI. You can kind of look at their chart here, and this is basically a chart that shows their annual income year over year. So 2022, 2023, and 2024, and this is their net income as well. And so gross income, it was a little bit slower for these past few years, but since the AI data center investments have kind of exploded this last year, we've seen a huge increase from last year to this year, and I expect that to keep going up. These companies are investing huge. Energy is a bottleneck. Bloom Energy is getting billions and billions of dollars of deals, every month, it seems like. And so I expect more and more deals and more revenue year over year. And so, and we can look at these deals. First they got the Oracle deal, and they deployed. Oracle needed those fuel cells deployed within 90 days. Bloom Energy got it done quicker. We don't know how much that was worth. It could have been involved. A lot of investors are saying that it was involved in this Brookfield deal. We don't know if that's true or not. But the second piece of news was that Brookfield and Bloom Energy announced a $5 billion strategic AI infrastructure partnership. So Brookfield is investing up to $5 billion in the data center industry and building data centers and whatnot and powering data centers. And so they're kind of bringing Bloom on board and investing up to $5 billion. Doesn't mean right now, but probably over a few years, where they're deploying the Bloom Energy servers to different data centers and investments that Brookfield basically has. But $5 billion is not a small number. I mean, that a company that's making $1.5 to $2 billion a year, and then getting a $5 billion partnership, that's really exciting, and I expect that to happen with more companies moving forward. Just recently we saw, I'll just read what it says. Bloom Energy Corporation shot up after American Electric Power Company announced on January 8th that one of its units plans on purchasing $2.65 billion worth of solid oxide fuel cells that Bloom provides from the company. The two parties, this is the exciting part, the two parties signed an agreement in 2024 to acquire 100 megawatts of solid fuel cells with an option to purchase an additional 900 megawatts. The utility exercised the option last week. And so the reason why the stock has been running is because Bloom received an additional, the additional option to deploy 900 additional megawatts of energy. And so they had only agreed on 100 megawatts. And so AEP is seeing that necessity for these energy servers, and Bloom got that deal. Like I said, the stock is trading at $30 billion valuation, which is very rich. Any piece of AI bearish news, like with OpenAI or Oracle having too much debt, Bloom Energy could easily fall, and it could retrace quite a bit. And in that case, I would just buy more. I bought my first shares at $30 to $35. I've had to sell those initial shares, to deal with taxes and business and stuff like that. But I'm back into Bloom at a higher valuation, even at a higher price, around $100. And, it hurt to have to sell those $30 shares, but it didn't hurt as much knowing that I think there's so much more room to run in this AI trade. And that's just my opinion. I could be wrong, but if the hyperscalers that have built extremely successful and profitable businesses, if they're investing in AI at the speed that they are, and maybe it's euphoria, but they seem to know something, and I want to trust them because they've built multi-billion, trillion-dollar companies, and I haven't. And as an investor, I see that as being bullish. Energy is going to be important going into the future. Data centers are being built. Energy is a bottleneck right now. Everyone's saying it. NVIDIA, Jensen Huang's saying it. Companies want to provide their own power and power their own data centers on site rather than pulling from the grid, costing the consumers extra, and doing it sustainably and doing it clean, in a clean way. And that's where Bloom kind of comes in and has created a really cool technology, basically. I consider it a technology company in the energy data center, industry. Anyway, I hope that kind of clears some things up about Bloom Energy. Maybe it doesn't. Maybe it was just a little vague. Like I said, I'm not an expert in this technology, but as an investor, it seems like all the tailwinds are there. Headwinds could include, maybe energy, maybe AI becomes more efficient. Maybe the NVIDIA chips become more efficient, and Bloom and energy doesn't become the bottleneck anymore, but I don't really see that happening. I think Bloom will catch a bid and will catch more deals moving forward. And I guess we'll have to see if they kind of go stagnant and they don't really grow beyond this, then maybe I'll sell my shares. But for now, I'm going to hold tight, and as a long-term investor, I want to see where we are in 5 years. And I think with that mindset, I think we're going to be much higher. So thank you guys so much for watching. If you like this video, please subscribe. I know this is kind of all over the place. I want to treat it like we're just having a chat, telling a friend about an opportunity. Like I said, this is not financial advice. This is my opinion and the research I've done. I'm not the all-knowing, so do your own research on this company and be prepared for volatile spikes. The majority of my portfolio last year was in this company, and I had some crazy violent swings. And I know you can too.